Hi, I'm Zed.
Hi, I'm P.
Welcome to the Not Your Typical Sister podcast. We're two brown girls trying to open the conversation and share our experiences on taboo subjects.
We're not experts or doctors, so we recommend speaking to a professional if you need help or advice. So grab a cuppa, sit back and enjoy the podcast.
Hi.
Hey.
Welcome to this episode of Not Your Typical Sister podcast. I'm really excited about today's episode, but firstly, how are you?
I am good, thank you. It's been a really hectic week. It was my husband's birthday this week, so we've had a lot of celebrations, which is also nice. But then you know what it's like getting back to work after you've taken like annual leave and stuff. It's been so much to catch up with. But I've been good. What about yourself?
I've been good too. It's just been a bit hectic, just with work, home life, everything. It's just been a bit mad recently. But apart from that, I've been really good.
Okay, that's good. So for this episode, we thought we're going to talk about depression, which I know affects quite a lot of people. And we'll probably touch on post-natal depression as well. In preparation for this episode, I was actually having a look at some statistics and I came across some shocking stats. So apparently, about 280 million people in the world have depression. I knew it was a lot of people, right? But it's just crazy when you think about it. And what number of people out of those people have actually been diagnosed? You know what I mean? Like in the world, how many people have actually been diagnosed? What about the people that haven't been diagnosed with it? And apparently, like in England alone, 1 in 6 people report they're experiencing some kind of mental health problem like anxiety or depression in a week. 1 in 6 people in a week. Isn't that crazy?
That is absolutely crazy. So it's a subject that's really close to my heart because I suffered from depression in my early 20s. So at that point, I was like in a very difficult sort of time in my life. There were lots of other things going on, which I'll probably touch on in future podcasts. But the one thing I do want to say is depression isn't the same as being sad. Like a lot of people throw the term around, oh, I feel really depressed. And it's like, you're not depressed, you're sad. There is a huge difference. Depression it's like having like this ache in yourself and you have like this mental fog. You can't think straight and nothing makes you happy anymore, or the things that used to make you happy, they don't. You get happy for a minute and then you're like, oh, why isn't this making me happy for longer? Like you try and do the things that you enjoyed before but you don't find any enjoyment out of them. So with me, I used to feel like really, really tired. I didn't want to get out of bed. And then when I did get out of bed, I would keep myself really, really busy. And I was working for like a top accounting firm at that point. So they had really tight deadlines and they kept everyone working at all hours of the day and night and on the weekends and everything. So although it was really stressful, I quite enjoyed that because it allowed me to focus on something that wasn't my own thoughts, and something that kept me busy would keep me away from myself, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So like, were you medically diagnosed with depression? Were you on like medication?
Yeah, so obviously people around me noticed the change in me, especially my mom and my brother, and they asked me to speak to the doctors and everything. And the thing is, I have depression in my family. I don't know if it's a genetic thing, but other people in my family have had depression. So my mom was really concerned, so she told me to speak to the doctors, and I went to the local GP, and they automatically prescribed me on antidepressants, which I found quite shocking, like how quickly they gave me the medication.
Yeah, because I thought, and I'm sure I read up on this, like one of the first things is they don't put you on antidepressants straight away. It's a last resort type thing. There are other ways of sort of treating it. So that's actually quite shocking.
Yeah, I was really shocked. They literally just basically, they spoke to me for a little bit, but you have like a 10-minute slot at the GP. You're supposed to talk about one problem. And my problem wasn't, I couldn't talk about it in 10 minutes. I didn't want to talk about it at all. And it was literally like, okay, here you go, try this medication. If it doesn't work, come back and we'll give you something else. So I went through 2 or 3 different antidepressants. And the thing with antidepressants is they made me really drowsy, but they also like numbed me. I was numb to like my senses. I'd be walking around like as if I'm sleepwalking, if that makes sense. It was everything, like my words wouldn't come out properly. I was just very slow in everything I did. Even though I changed the medication several times, it was just really, really rubbish. And it made me feel worse because before you experience stuff, But then when you're on the medication, you stop feeling as much, and you kind of stop caring, which is really scary, because obviously some people, when they've got depression, they have suicidal thoughts, and you don't want to go down that route. But
Yeah.
this medication doesn't help you.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's supposed to be doing, to be honest. It just made me feel worse.
I've had a lot of people say the same thing, to be honest, which is why I don't think it should be like the first point of call. On your thought about suicide, I actually was reading some other statistics about it. Obviously, it's worst. Depression can lead to suicide, but the craziest thing about it is that over 700,000 people die due to suicide every year. And apparently it's the fourth leading cause of death between 15 and 29-year-olds.
Wow, that's insane.
And you know, the worst thing is suicidal thoughts and self-harm aren't mental health diagnosed, which is quite scary when you think about it. And I think there was a study or something on Mind that I was reading that says that 1 in 5 people have suicidal thoughts, 1 in 14 people self-harm, and 1 in 15 people attempt suicide. And apparently women are more likely to have suicidal thoughts, but men are the ones that make the suicidal attempt, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. And it's shocking, but it's understandable as well. Like, I can actually believe it. It's believable. It's just really sad that I don't know what it is about depression, Pete. People don't want to talk about it. If you're depressed, you don't tell people you're depressed. And a lot of people just deny that there's something wrong with you. They're just like, oh yeah, Zed, come out. Come on, let's go for a walk. Everything will be fine. Cheer up. Let's do this. But you can't just cheer up. It's not an on-off button. It doesn't work like that. And I'm not trying to say that people didn't help. There were a lot of people that genuinely tried to help. And I remember my brother even actually saying to me at one point, he said, I can't help you if you don't allow yourself to be helped. Like, if you push people away, no one can help you. And I remember, like, with my friends, for example, like even with you, I stopped talking to everyone for a while. I just went off the radar. And when people invited me to things, I wouldn't go to them. Even when I did go to certain things, if there was like a family event and I had to go to, I didn't have a choice, I would want to leave. So I tried to make excuses to leave earlier because I didn't want to be there.
Yeah. With yourself then, did you notice a change in yourself, or was it only when someone pointed it out to you? And then did you want to talk about it, or like you said, you tried to avoid it? Like, what was your thoughts in all of that? I think that's what I'm trying to get at.
To be honest, I think I tried to avoid it more than anything else. I tried to avoid talking about it. I tried to avoid people mentioning it. I tried to change the subject if someone talked about it, or I would just shut down and I wouldn't respond. I think that's probably like the worst thing you could possibly do, just shut down and not respond and try and avoid it, because you can avoid something, but it's not going to go away. It's still going to be there. And that's the problem with depression. It doesn't go away. It might get better, but it's always there lingering. People pointed it out to me. The people closest to me started pointing it out. They're like, oh, you're changing. Or they wouldn't say there's something wrong in terms of you're depressed. They were like, oh, you're changing. And they'd point things out about me that I've changed about. Like, for example, I'm not talking to people. I'm just sitting there in the corner reading my book and not interacting, not socializing. I think pointing things and pointing bad things about someone who's already depressed and you know there's something wrong with them isn't helping. I don't know. That was my impression. And I think people could have helped with using kinder words.
Yeah. And so, like, at your worst, how did you feel? And then did things start getting better for you in terms of your feelings and your mindset, and how you, like, if you ever did recover from that, how did you go about doing that?
So at its worst, I just didn't think it was going to get better. I literally did not think it was going to get better. And I did probably have some suicidal thoughts at some point. It's really scary when you think of it. Like, now, if I look back at it and I think, oh my goodness, I actually thought about something that's that scary. But it did get better. I think it took me a few years to get better, but slowly it did get better. And I think I just got to a point where I thought, I can't live like this forever. This can't be me. There's no point in living like this if I'm going to continue the way I am. I'm literally wasting my life. And then slowly, I think the situation in my life changed, which helped hugely. And there were certain aspects, certain factors that triggered it. Like, I was going through a divorce, and that was part of it as well. Sorry, I'm getting emotional now talking about it, but it did get better.
Yeah.
But yeah, going back to your question, it did get better.
That's good. I'm glad that it did get better for you. And I know it's not easy to go through. And like you said, I don't think people understand the extent to which it affects your life. Having depression affects your life in so many ways that people can't fathom, and only you would know. Only you
Yeah.
would know how you're feeling. You might be sitting, like you said, you sat in a social situation, you did not want to be there. What is going through your mind? You know what I mean? Like what thoughts are you having at that time? You just want to escape.
Yeah. And you constantly blame yourself for everything that's happening. And if you're in like a social situation, you think, oh my God, they would be so much happier if I wasn't here. Why am I here ruining their mood? And then you just think those dark, negative thoughts about yourself. And then you start believing it, which is worse. And the thing is, other people probably don't think like that. They're not thinking that, they'd rather you not be there. But you think it. And I think it improved a lot. But then going on to postnatal depression, when I had Xavier, it came back again. But it came back in a different way, because when I had Xavier, I think in the Asian culture, if you have a baby boy, that's like the best thing you could possibly ever have. So when I had Xavier, everyone was more concerned that it was a boy than it was healthy. To me, of course, I was happy that I had a healthy baby. Of course, I was happy I had a healthy baby boy, which is what everyone thought was the bigger of the two anyway.
Mm.
But my life wasn't my own anymore. And I struggled so much with that lack of control. And I think that was it. It was the lack of control of my life again, because I couldn't do anything I wanted to do without considering Xavier. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't even go to the toilet without thinking, where do I put Xavier? Do I put him in the bouncer? I can't put him on the bed. Obviously, he might roll over. Like, there was just a million thoughts that you have in your head, but you can't do even the smallest things without considering the baby. And I think that lack of control and that dependence on me scared me.
Yeah.
And I struggled with postnatal, and I thought it was the baby blues, because I think that's pretty normal. After you've had a baby, you have baby blues, but it didn't go away. So when I had my 6-week check with the health visitor, and they make you complete a form,
Yeah.
and they ask you to sort of tick certain things, and how often do you feel sad? How often do you feel, like, it's basically trying to test whether or not you have postnatal depression. And I realized I was lying through that entire form. So I was ticking all the right answers, but that's not how I felt. And that's when I remember speaking to you as well,
Yeah.
because I spoke to you and I spoke to my husband, and I think that's what the difference was between the last time I had depression and the first time I had depression. I spoke to people about it. And that speaking to other people, that even if it was your close circle, just telling other people what you're going through, it makes you feel lighter, and it helps awareness. And then people know that, hold on, she's not just being a stupid cow and ignoring me. She's genuinely going through something.
It's about acceptance, isn't it? If you're in denial about something, the situation's never going to change, because you don't want to admit it. You don't want to accept it. And maybe you're right, because you went through the situation before, you were able to learn from it, and you were able to recognize the signs in yourself, maybe the second time round. And then you were able to deal with it differently.
Yeah, definitely. I didn't want to go back on medication. That was the one thing I didn't want to do. I didn't want to go back on that medication. That scared me a lot, because I remember there was one pill that I took, and it was a tiny, tiny pill, but it knocked me out for 2 days.
Wow.
Like, I was zonked out, and I was woke up and I couldn't move. So I had to just lay in bed for 2 days.
Wow. And did you find, like, with having the depression and stuff, it was affecting your work and things like that? Because you weren't able, obviously, if you were knocked out for 2 days, you couldn't go. I don't know if that was over a weekend or weekday, but you couldn't go to work, presumably.
Yeah. I mean, thankfully that was over a weekend. That didn't affect my work, but generally it did affect. That's why I didn't like the medication, because it made me slower. So it took me longer to complete my tasks. So
Yeah.
it did affect my work, but I think I'll be honest, I can't remember. It's like there's a blank part of my life. It's like I don't want to remember what happened then, and
Yeah.
I try not to remember what happened then, which isn't obviously a good thing, but it definitely didn't help me in any situation. It didn't help me in my relationships. It didn't help me in my home life. It didn't help me in my work life.
Yeah. Wow.
So with postnatal, it thankfully it didn't last as long as the first time I had depression. It only lasted a few months, I think. You might know, but it became better when I spoke to people about it, and when I, like you said, that awareness thing, knowing that you've got it, and knowing that you don't want to have this for a long term, because at the end of the day, I needed to take care of myself first in order to take care of the baby. You kind of lose sight of that when you become a new mom. You kind of lose sight of the fact that you actually need to look after yourself, because if you don't look after yourself, you can't look after the baby. It's not possible.
Yeah, that's true. And so how did, like, with the postnatal depression, how do you feel you came out of that? Was there anything that you did? Was there stuff that you changed in your routine and stuff like that to kind of help you come out of that? Was there any particular thing that you that you thought was like helpful or made the biggest difference?
I think the biggest difference was talking to people. And that's what I didn't do the first time around. It was just talking to people, letting them know that this is what I'm going through. And then certain people gave me advice. I spoke to a few people who've had postnatal depression. That helped me as well, because talking through their experiences helped me get out of mine. And I think with time, it became easier to talk about it and not basically burst into tears every time I spoke about it. It's a slow process, but you just have to sort of work on your mindset. I think it all comes down to mindset over and over again. You just have to try and think to yourself, I don't want this to be how I am forever. I need to improve. I need to feel better about things. But you kind of think about things in a different way instead of constantly having negative thoughts and thinking bad about yourself and thinking like you're not good enough for this baby and what type of mom am I going to be? I'm not good enough for him. He's perfect and I'm not. But you have to try and think that you are their mum and you are the perfect mum that you could possibly be for them, and try and like think happier thoughts. And it's really hard to think happier thoughts, but it's just like having those, like you said in one of the previous episodes, positive affirmations. And it's having those positive affirmations and other people having those, giving you those positive affirmations as well. Like with my husband, he was being so supportive and he like kept on reminding me about all the good that I was doing. And then obviously, because I was feeling my life's not my own, I needed to get a bit of time out as well for myself. Yeah. And then having my husband realize that and then giving me a little bit of time to myself, that helped me hugely because I got to focus a bit on myself as well.
Yeah.
And then I stopped resenting it all a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's really important. And I don't think people understand the extent to which after you've had a baby, a mother needs to go out and have at least a day without the baby, because you have no idea how much of it, even if you're not doing anything, even if it's just you going to the park, going for a walk, it makes such a difference just to have 1 minute to yourself, because your whole life has changed. Everything's just, your whole life's become about the baby. Everything you do, your main purpose now is the baby. And mentally, that obviously is going to have an effect on you because your whole life's turned upside down, really. And it's a good thing. It's a good thing. But like in cases with postnatal depression, like you say, you can't help the way that you think. And the thoughts are going to be negative. And you need to do something positive for yourself to kind of bring yourself back to being you.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's definitely a long process. It takes a lot of time, a lot of effort. But yeah, you're right. People don't understand that when you've had a baby, you need to think about the mum as well. Because if you think about it, before you have a baby, you go through all these different checks. You see the midwife every so often. You have all these different tests on you all the time. And as soon as you've had the baby, I think you only have like 2 checks. You have a 6-week check, and I think you have a couple of checks a few days after the baby's born and a week after the baby's born. And that's it. Everyone forgets that you're recovering and you've had your whole life changed, and you need the support that you can, all the support you can possibly get. But yeah, even a day or even a few hours away from the baby is very, very important, and people forget that.
Yeah. And what about with Zyra? Do you feel like it was different? Did you kind of feel the baby blues again, or how did that affect you the second time around?
So with Zyra was born during lockdown, so it was a bit weird. There were so many COVID restrictions. I felt a bit sad with Zyra. I don't think I had depression with her. I think it was more, I felt sad for her because she didn't get to experience what Xavier experienced in terms of the baby classes. So I went to so many classes with Xavier, and I think that was part of the postnatal thing as well. I was trying to keep myself busy. I used to like enroll on every single class I could possibly think of: children's center classes, baby yoga, baby Pilates. I did everything I could possibly do with Xavier. And with Zyra, everything was closed and everything was essentially remote or virtual if they were running it. So she didn't get to experience that. So there was more one-on-one time with her. But I also think because Zanuna was around a lot more, we were all at home for quite a while, that helped a lot. It wasn't like he was home for 2 weeks and then he went back to work. He was around a lot more than before. And I was aware of it as well. It was the awareness thing. So I didn't get it with Zyra. I don't know if that's because I say that it was the awareness thing. I don't know. You don't know when depression is going to hit you. You could be absolutely fine 1 minute, and the next minute you don't even know if that something's triggered you, but then you're just feeling really, really sad. And it's not just the sad, it's that achy feeling, and that's that feeling lethargic, not wanting to get out of bed. And it creeps up on you. It doesn't just happen overnight. You don't just be happy one day and then you're depressed the next day. It comes slowly. I think with me, I just need to, when I'm starting to feel it coming a little bit, it's almost like your period coming, to be honest. You sort of have these little symptoms coming up, right?
God.
And then when I start, I'm sorry, P, when those symptoms start appearing, I tell Zanun, I'm like, look, it's happening, and I feel like something's not right. And then we talk about it and we try and think, what is it related to, etc.
Yeah, so I was going to say, like, just obviously for the listeners, it's good that you can recognize, when it's coming, but what kind of symptoms do you feel like in the lead up or the build up, if you can figure it out?
I think it'll be dependent on each person, but for me, in terms of the lead up, I start getting really irritated, and then it's almost like having a period, isn't it? I get really irritated beforehand. So I think one of the things that I do is I cancel things. I cancel going out places. And one of the things that I've noticed is when I'm reading, if I can't focus on the book, and if I don't enjoy it, that means something's wrong. Either I'm not enjoying the book or there's something like bigger in it. One of my go-tos is Harry Potter, you know that. So if I'm reading Harry Potter and I can't enjoy Harry Potter, something's definitely wrong. But I think with everyone, it varies. I think my symptoms might be different to someone else's. I think that's a really hard one to say to other people. I just think if you think there's something wrong, if you're not feeling right, if you're not enjoying things and you're avoiding people, and you generally don't feel like as if you're enjoying life, then you need to get some help. If that's talking to someone, going on the Mind website, talking to a professional, just letting people know around you that there's something wrong.
You're right. And I think as well, there's so much social stigma around depression itself. It's sometimes so hard to speak to the people closest to you. I don't know what it was like for you when you first had depression and your family around you. It's really helpful, I guess, that your family recognized that for you, but other people probably sometimes don't even have that luxury, because depression is not something that people recognize, or that people recognize as a problem or a mental health issue, or like a health problem in general. It's not seen as a condition, if you will. It's more seen as, oh, what's wrong with you, kind of thing. Like, why are you being so sad all the time? Why don't you want to do this or do that, kind of thing? Why are you sleeping all the time? It could be
why you're
something
so
else.
sulky. Yeah, I think you're right about other people not understanding it and not noticing certain things. Like with me, my mum, she noticed it and she was worried. I think she sort of tried to deny it first, but then she realized it's getting worse, so we need to go and get some help. But you're right, other people might not be as lucky, and I didn't notice it until she probably pointed it out to me a little bit more. I think with depression, people don't talk about it. It's like as if you talk about it, you're going to catch it or something. I don't know what people think, but it does need to be talked about a lot more, because like you said, you read those stats out. So many people have it. So many people get it. Some people know other people who have it. So even if you don't have it yourself, you might know someone and you could help them instead of making it worse. Because a lot of people when they try and help, they're not being very helpful. Telling someone to cheer up when they've got depression is not possible, especially if they're on medication. Like, that's another thing you have to take into consideration. Are they on medication? Are they not?
Yeah, that's true.
Also, there's another thing as well. When you tell people you've got depression, some people take it on themselves that it's their fault. If you tell someone close to you that you've got depression, automatically they think to themselves, oh no, is this because I've said something, I've done something, I've behaved in a certain way? Are they not happy with me, or are they not happy in the life that they have with me? Like with my mum, for example, she was really worried because she just thought, what have I done wrong? Her mother, she's my daughter. I'm supposed to be looking after her and making sure she's happy, but I'm not doing that. I fundamentally failed in my job.
Yeah.
And that's a scary thought.
That is quite scary, actually. I didn't really think about that. How it affects people around you, I suppose, and how it makes them feel about what you're going through.
Aside from talking to you about it, there's nothing they can actually do to help. They can talk to you about it. They can try and be aware, trying to be supportive. But actually, it's one of those things where you can only help yourself. You can try and get out of it, but the other people, there are things they can do. They can stop it from getting worse, for sure. But in terms of improving it, I think it's very difficult for someone else to help you. But that's my experience. Other people might have different experiences.
Yeah. Just for listeners out there, if they think they're going through something, or if they think their friends or family are going through something, what can people do to help themselves or help others?
First, I would say try and talk to the people that are closest to you and explain your situation, and try and just get that conversation started. Even no matter how uncomfortable it is or how difficult it is, just try and talk to the people closest to you and explain to them how you're feeling. If you think you have depression, or if you know someone who has it, or you think they have it, try and talk to them about it. Try and ask them genuinely, how are they feeling? Take them out for a coffee or something and just try and talk to them. Maybe they might talk to you. And if you've got it, or you know someone who has it and you have no one to talk to, then there's always the Mind website, and there's lots of mental health hotlines that you can use. So there's lots of information on the Mind website where you can go for further support. But you can also obviously contact us, and we can try and direct you to who would be the best person to speak to about something like this. We're not professionals, but we can definitely try and help.
Yeah, that's right. And I think I read a lot of useful information on the Royal College of Psychology or Psychiatrics website. We'll obviously put all the links and the stats and stuff that we've talked about in the podcast narrative if anyone's interested in looking at them. I think the whole purpose of us doing this is to try and raise awareness about things like depression and other mental health conditions, and just, let people know that there are other people out there that are in a similar position to you, or might be suffering with the same thing that you're suffering with, and you're not alone. There is help out there, and hopefully one day things will get better.
Thank you so much for listening into this. I really hope it's been useful for you. And if you've got any questions, then please do drop us a message or a line and let us know what your thoughts were on this episode.
Yes, we definitely love to hear from you. We obviously love reading all your comments. Yeah, we hope you guys have a lovely week, and we will speak to you soon.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to this episode of Not Your Typical Sister.
We would love to hear your thoughts and comments. You can leave us comments and reviews on whichever streaming service you are listening through.
Don't forget to join our tribe on Instagram and Facebook at Not Your Typical Sister.
Speak to you next time.